Hello, everybody, and as I used to say, are you ready for Hawkeye Wrestling? And I hate to use the word I use that very infrequently, but I did do the public address announcing for Iowa men's wrestling for 44 years, and I totally enjoyed it, and I'm going to enjoy, while I'm here in the state of Iowa this winter, watching the Iowa women's wrestling team, which I expect will be right up there with the men's wrestling team as far as popularity. But first of all, we'll start right here. At the end, I want you to tell them your name, where you're from, what year you are in school.
Hi everyone, my name is Sierra Brownton. I'm a senior. I'm from Dallas, Texas, and this is my second year here now.
Hello, my name is Cali Leng. I'm from Ohio, and I'm a freshman.
Hi everybody, I'm Marlynne Deede. I'm from Utah. I'm a fifth-year transfer.
Now, we were supposed to have a few more wrestlers, but unlike when I was in school, their schooling took a priority and they were not able to make it this afternoon. So we're going to go with these 3 stars on the Iowa team, and I'm sure there are a lot of questions everybody has, but the one thing I'd like to remind everybody of, when I was just starting my college career, and this is, I'm ashamed to say this, but the women were involved in home economics, and they did this and they did that. Now, Iowa wrestling, and isn't that a beautiful thing? Now, the one question I want to start, and we'll just go down the line and ask you, why wrestling?
I love the feel of combative sports, and just, it's an art really, and being able to compete. I grew up wrestling boys, and I got into wrestling because of my brother, but I'm a really competitive person. My parents love wrestling, and it's just a feeling that you can't really get with any other sport.
I started wrestling originally because I wanted to make friends, but it turned into my whole life and my heart and my soul. And to me, it's just a way to see the truest version of myself and become the best version of myself, and that's why I love it so much.
I actually grew up playing other sports. I played basketball growing up, and I don't come from a wrestling family at all, and I had a friend that was out for our junior high team, and she had reached out to me and said, hey, come join wrestling. And that was way back in 8th grade, and I hated wrestling. I did not like wrestling at all, but something was calling me to the sport, and I think as I've grown up, I've kind of figured out why I'm called to the sport, and it's been like a progress for me learning to like love the sport and be a part of the sport. But I think like wrestling is something that will shape you more than any other sport. You're faced with a lot of challenges and adversity every day in the practice room, and then for us women in sports, we've had to pave the way, also women in wrestling. And so I think for me, it shaped my character and who I am, and I always advocate for young women, young men to wrestle because it will shape you like no other. So that's why I love wrestling. It's a tough sport, but it's given me everything. Confidence and who I am has been shaped from wrestling.
Now, I don't want to take something away from other sports, football, basketball, baseball, and a lot of other things, but I've been around wrestling and wrestlers long enough to know that it's one of the most grueling, intense, determining sport you can get into. You have to go for that amount of time without stopping. It's not like football, where, as a player once told me, you go for 5 seconds, then you rest for 30. You have to keep going. The intensity and what it takes to be a high-level wrestler, whether that be male or female, is incredible. I can attest to that. And you look at these 3 beautiful girls, and you wouldn't think, well, boy, these girls, this is going to be the intensity of Iowa wrestling. Now, one thing I've got to say, you all came to the University of Iowa. How much pressure is there going to be on you when the program in the room right next to you is a program that's won over 20 national titles. They win a Big Ten title numerous times, and obviously you know of all the accolades of the Dan Gables, the Brands brothers, the Zaleskis, and Ironsides, everybody through the years, and what they have put on the Iowa wrestling wall. How much pressure does that put on you girls?
I think the coaches, the Brands brothers, they are so supportive of women's wrestling. The men's wrestling team is super supportive of us. And so our own coaches, Coach Chun, Coach Mayab, and Coach Rubik, do a really great job of making it feel like a family. And because this is our path, and even though they have set the bar high, we plan on doing the same thing because we have high expectations for ourselves and we want to accomplish many things. And I think we're doing that, especially with the community that we have here at Iowa.
I think it's important to not look at it as pressure, but to look at it as an opportunity to maybe even do something better than the men's team has done, or raise that bar higher. So I think if you tell yourself it's pressure and you tell yourself, oh, we have to do this, then it's something that's hard and difficult and grueling. But I think the women's team, look at it as an opportunity to be better and to create something new and different and strong. And that's what's exciting to me about it, especially it being something new and different. But we have the capacity to do something great, and we already are. So that's what I think.
I think the men's team and the men's program have really set the bar high, and I think that's awesome. We've been able to be welcomed with open arms in Iowa City, the wrestling capital, and so I think it's just an awesome, awesome opportunity to fight alongside the men's program and fight for the Hawks.
Very good. Obviously you've chosen wrestling. What advice or hints or whatever would you give to young girls in high school who are saying, boy, oh boy, is this something I want to do? Should I tackle something like this? Do I want to go into this full force? What advice would you give these girls?
Well, I think women's wrestling right now is the second fastest. I think it goes back and forth between lacrosse and women's wrestling for the fastest growing sport in high school. And like I said before, I'm a huge, huge advocate for young girls being involved in athletics. And for me personally, especially wrestling, like I said, it has shaped me. And it has given me a lot of confidence because we've had to, step in a room. I think it's changing a lot, but when we were in high school, we had to step in a room full of boys, and we've always had to prove ourselves and kind of define our own worth and be in a place where we're supposed to be, but we've had to prove that. And I think that confidence and that willpower has translated into all areas of my life, whether it's school, relationships, so many different things. And so I am a huge advocate for young girls wrestling because it builds confidence and character like no other.
I agree with what Marlynne's saying, and I think my advice would be from my own personal experiences is don't put any limit on yourself ever. Don't ever tell yourself that you can't do something or you can't go all the way or you can't do more. Because in my career and in my life where I've struggled is I've told myself I can't do something or I can't do this, I can't accomplish this. Don't put a limit on yourself. Don't hold yourself back. That's really important, especially as you keep continuing to grow levels. And it doesn't matter where you're starting. So I think don't put that limit for yourself and always put your best out there no matter what. It doesn't matter if you're a beginner or if you've wrestled half your life.
To echo what Marlynne and Cali said, I think is great because it gives women an opportunity to grow themselves. I mean, women's wrestling is the fastest growing sport, like Marlynne said. And that just means that you have an opportunity to compete at a high school level, college level, and an international level. You can take your education at a very far level, as far as you want to go, really, because you're able to wrestle in college. And so I think it's a great chance and opportunity to take advantage of. But also, wrestling for me, I think has proven that it's more so individualized, and so it teaches you a lot of strong characteristics that you can apply to the workforce or anything that you really take on. Like what Marlynne was saying, she did a really good job at explaining that. But you have nothing to lose when you join wrestling, and I think it can only benefit you.
I think also for women's wrestling, the opportunities just keep growing and growing. And with Iowa opening a program, I think that's going to hopefully set off a domino effect for other Division I programs to open up. And so these young girls coming up, like, now's the time to start, because there's going to be a lot more opportunities once they get older.
Well, obviously, you three and your teammates are setting new groundworks for all kinds of other schools. So my question is, maybe just one of you can answer this. How many programs are there approximately in Division I as far as wrestling in the country right now?
I think it's around 4 to 8, I think, in that there might only be 5. I think there's only 5 D1 programs in women's wrestling right now. They haven't split up the divisions yet, so we'll all compete against each other. All NCAA programs will compete against each other, whether it's Division I, Division II, Division III. So there's only 5.
So you're in the top 5 in the country.
Yeah.
That's obviously, and I'm sure when people see it, because I'm sure in some form of television, Iowa women's wrestling will appear in front of the people in Iowa and maybe the Big Ten Network, and it'll go forth. So is it, for those that don't know, the same number of weight classes as the men have, and does it differ in any way because of the fact of women versus men?
Yeah, so for women's collegiate wrestling, we have 10 weight classes, the same as the men, but the weight classes are different. So it'll start 101, the highest weight class is 191, and we're all different weight classes, but I mean, sometimes you just...
The women's weight classes start a little bit lighter, obviously, because they're smaller. So we'll start at 101. I think the men start at 125 and go up to heavyweight, where the women start at 101 and go up to 191. And they have more weight classes between 101 and 136.
Now, are there any other Big Ten teams?
No.
Okay. Since there's only 4 or 5 or 6, who are they that have programs that...
Sacred Heart, that's somewhere on the East Coast, I think. Presbyterian College, that's also somewhere on the East Coast. I don't know. Lindenwood, Grandview. Yeah, that's all I know off the top of my head.
Okay. I'm going to start here, and I want you each to talk. You've got a wonderful new coach. Tell us a little bit about your coach and the things. I don't know if she's here today, but you can tell these people, they'll never tell her that you said it. Anything you'd like to say about your coach today?
We have 3 amazing coaches, and I'll start with Coach Chun and Coach Mam and then Coach Rabik. They are all different, but they all complement each other very well. Coach Chun just brings a lot of community to the table, and she just does a great job at showing technique. The way she coaches is a little bit like more technique, and just really focuses on the emphasis of getting things down. All of them do. Coach Mayab he's very detailed. If you ever talk to him, he's the best coach to just, you want anything, any information, he has it. But he's more so like drilling fast pace. He has that down. Coach Rabik loves the live practices, and it's hard and it's grueling, but all of them do a great job at complementing one another, and I couldn't say anything negative about any of these coaches. They're all great. I love them.
I 100% agree with Sierra. I don't think I could ever say anything negative about any of the coaches. And personally, I look at all three of them in a different way, but they're all amazing coaches. You know, Coach Tanya, to me, has been sort of a mother figure coming into college and, you know, having my parents back home. And I really look at her kind of like a mother figure there. And she's always there to give me hugs and talk to me and work through things. And, you know, Coach Gary, he's very tactical, very strategic, very smart, intelligent, and the conversations we have, I always walk away feeling enlightened and like I just had a productive and progressive conversation with him that will help me to be not just a better wrestler, but a better person and a better human and a better student in every aspect of my life. And Coach Chun is probably one of the ones I've gotten the closest with since I've been here, and she's always there to help put a smile on my face if I'm having a rough day and be there for me. And she's a great sounding board as well as an amazing technician with wrestling. And I think all three of them are individually unique and special, but they all complement each other well, and that's why they're such an amazing coaching staff. But they haven't just created a wrestling team, they've created a wrestling family, so I think that's what's special about it.
Yeah, I think Coach Clarissa Chun has been trailblazing her whole entire career. She's been trailblazing for women in sport, for the United States on a world level for women's wrestling. And so when I was at a different university, and when I saw the announcement that Clarissa Chun was going to be the head coach here, I thought to myself, this is a huge move for the Hawkeyes, because she has been around young women, older women. She's been through it all. She knows how to coach. She knows her stuff. And one thing that's really cool about Clarissa, I've known her since probably my sophomore year of high school, and I'm a fifth year, so I've known her for lots of years now. And she knows how to put a smile on anyone's face. She is very lighthearted, and she has so much humility. She's a kind, warm soul, and she's looking to build a tough program, and she knows what she's doing because she's been trailblazing her whole entire career. And so it is an honor to be on a team with her, and it's an honor to watch her, you know, pave the way, continue to pave the way for all of the young girls, and now this program. And like they said, Gary Mayab and Tanya Verbeek are such a great addition also. They both are so talented in what they do, and they're so committed and disciplined, and I just appreciate all of the things that they bring to the table. But Clarissa Chun is trailblazing for all of us, and it's been awesome to watch and get to know her. She's a huge move for the Hawkeyes.
How about the interaction between, and I don't know that there's any, between your team and the men's team? Are there any moves, quite frankly, that you can show them or they can show you, you know, on the, is there any interaction between the men's and the women's team?
Well, I'm a little bit new here, and so since I've been here, there hasn't been a whole lot of interaction yet, so I don't, maybe Sierra can answer that one better.
They're, like I said before, they're very supportive, and anytime we see them, it's always hi. We have different practice times, but I'm sure if we ever went to them and were like, hey, can you show me this fireman's carry? They would be so willing to show us and take the time out of their day to show us. But
the Brands brothers always interact with us with such enthusiasm, always.
They're special brothers, I can say that. Now, can you talk, the three of you, a little bit more about Women's Wrestling Academy and the IWWC, and tell us exactly what that is?
Yeah, so the IWWC, Iowa Women's Wrestling Club, it's like separate from the university, but it's still like a club where we're able to compete to make world and Olympic teams, since that's separate from college wrestling. And so that club gives us an opportunity to train and to travel to tournaments like World Team Trials, and I think also internationally. And so it's separate, but you know, we cross over. Our college season is pretty much October through March, and then we have we go to try to make world and Olympic teams from April and May, I think, is that season. But the club is there to support and aid our women wanting to make world and Olympic teams.
I would say that the Iowa Women's Wrestling club that is just now starting is a great opportunity for a lot of the Hawkeyes on the women's wrestling team leaving, like me, Marlynne, the seniors. It gives us the opportunity to take our wrestling to the next level and keep pursuing it while we're in graduate school. Because I don't just want to stop wrestling when I'm in college. It would be great to earn an NCAA title like Marlynne herself, she did last year. But I also want to pursue the Olympics, and so the Iowa Hawkeye Wrestling Club is going to help us do that.
How big a schedule do you girls, are you going to have this year? How many meets, how many home meets, how many away meets? And tell us a little bit, will there be a national championship?
Yeah, so we have, I don't think it's released yet, but we have a pretty packed schedule, which is really awesome. Granted, since there aren't too many women's program in the area, so there won't be many home duels. I think we have 2. Off the top of my head, I think we have 2 for sure, one in January and I think one in November. And we will have nationals, which will actually be in Cedar Rapids in the first week of March, I think it is when it is. And then we have a home tournament. So there actually will be, I think, around 4 opportunities where we will be competing in our home state. But other than that, we'll be traveling. I think our first tournament is over in the East Coast at, I think it's the Princeton Open, and we'll just go from there. But I think as of right now, there's around 4 things that will be in this state.
Everybody knows the old saying, and it's a saying that'll live on forever. It's great to be a Hawkeye, but you're pretty new around here. You're all from out of state. Tell us your feelings on being in Iowa City and the fact that you are Hawkeyes now.
Well, I transferred from Oxford University in Minneapolis, and if anyone knows about Minnesota, they have this saying that Minnesota nice is a thing. However, when I came to Iowa City, I first thought, oh my gosh, they have Iowa nice. I mean, usually you hear Minnesota nice, but there's such thing as Iowa nice, and so I really like that it's a community here. I mean, oftentimes I go out of state, and if I see someone wearing a wrestling shirt, I freak out. I'm like, oh my gosh, they support wrestling. But here, everyone really supports wrestling, and it's a family, so I'm not surprised if I see someone repping a wrestling shirt. I'm like, yes, I love it. And I also just love the attitude that the University of Iowa provides its athletes and students in general, and that's to win, graduate, and do it right, and I want to continue that while I'm here.
Yeah, I agree with Sierra because coming from Ohio, you know, wrestling's big in Ohio, but you come to Iowa, wrestling's big in Iowa, and it's like, you know, you go into a store, you're walking around campus, and it's like people know wrestling, people respect wrestling, and I think it's really exciting because it's the greatest sport ever, and when you have a whole state that recognizes it and loves it just as much as you, I mean, that's amazing, and it's inspiring and empowering. And as far as Iowa City, you know, it's been really great. Everyone's super kind, super sweet, and very helpful and encouraging. So I really like it, and I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, I think on one of my recruiting trips, I had come out and I was with a teammate that was wearing a Iowa women's wrestling shirt, and we had gotten stopped a couple of times because people were curious about the program, and I thought that was the coolest thing, that so many people around here are so interested. And also, I recently went on a trip home to Utah. I went to the Minneapolis airport, the Denver airport, and the Salt Lake City airport. Every single time, all 3 times, I got stopped because I was wearing a Hawkeye sweatshirt. I got stopped 3 times by someone saying, "Go Hawks," or I was loading my bag and someone had to get over, and I was just like, "Oh, excuse me," and he said, "Anything for a Hawkeye." And so the family, like, it's nationwide, and I just remember getting home and telling my parents, like, this is such a cool family to be a part of. I went to 3 different states and got stopped in 3 different states because this is such a family here in Iowa City.
Every time you go out, and I can say this as personal verification, you got to wear a hat or something with the Tiger Hawk on it, because no matter where you go, and I was fortunate enough this summer to be in Europe some, you definitely hear "Go Hawks." It doesn't matter where you're at, and you girls you'll have that the rest of your life. So, what are you looking forward to the most with the upcoming season with Iowa women's wrestling?
I think I'm very, very excited to compete. I love competing, and this is going to be totally different for me this year, but I am so excited to compete with a family and a community of people and just so many people that are behind me. That is such an awesome feeling, and I know that representing the Hawkeyes, like, we all are going to go out there on the mat and know that we are backed by so many people. And also, I think it's so cool to be a part of this program because, yes, it's the University of Iowa, so that's pretty awesome, but also this is a huge, huge move for women's wrestling. The sport of wrestling for women is going to grow, and we get to be the first ever to represent a Power 5 Division I program, and so that is something I am so excited, and I hope to represent with hard work and integrity, and it's cool to be backed by such amazing people.
I think that was really well said. I think for me, I'm also just looking forward to competing. And coming from, transitioning from high school to college, it's going to be a different taste. It's going to be different, and I'm going to have to adjust. But I think I'm really excited to step on the mat with the Hawkeye logo on my singlet. So wearing the black and gold, that's what I'm excited for the most.
We're excited to win also.
Yeah.
Go Hawks!
Go Hawks!
I'm definitely looking forward to representing black and gold, and I think for the past 4 years I've been college wrestling, but what makes this year different is that we are backed by the Iowa community, and it's so big and supportive, and I'm just looking forward to it. I'm so excited to compete with my new family because all of us, we have our front and back of each other. We support each other. I mean, we fight each other in the wrestling room, but we're still family, and that's what makes it a sisterhood and a community.
Okay, it hasn't all been roses now. So give us maybe one negative what struggles, whether it not be for yourselves, for women's wrestling, or, what do you wish could be a little bit better?
You have to take time to think about that because there's not a lot of negatives.
There aren't a lot of negatives. See, the fact is, in Iowa City, it may not be heaven, but you can see it from here.
Yeah.
And I don't say the same thing about Ames, Iowa. but
Hawkeye State.
Go ahead.
I think for me, I've done 4 years of college. I went through high school wrestling, and it wasn't a great thing for me. And so I think the biggest struggle that I've had, but it's now one of the biggest blessings, is the trailblazing that I had to do for myself, whether that be in high school and in college, because I think, wrestling will put you in environments that will shape you, and you have to deal with like a lot of different things. And I think as women in the sport, I think we tend to deal with a little bit of a different type of pushback that I think that the men experience. And so I think we've had to learn to carry ourselves with a lot of pride and a lot of just knowing, having our feet in the ground and believing in ourselves. And so I think my biggest struggle being a part of this sport is just, putting my head down and going to work and choosing not to dwell on people that may disagree or may not think that this is a place that women are supposed to be in. And I think it's awesome to see where, when I started, a long time ago to now, how many people are really jumping on the train of women's wrestling. But so many women have had to really struggle to get to that point, and so that's been a struggle for me. But it's shaped me, and now I'm a strong-headed person because of it, I think. So I think it's a blessing in disguise.
Yeah, I think I can kind of echo that a little bit. And I haven't wrestled as long as Marlynne, but growing up, high school wrestling you're wrestling in a boys' wrestling room. And the reality that comes with being a female in a male-dominated sport is a lot of times you're not welcomed there, you're not wanted in the wrestling room, and people don't want to wrestle with you. And that's something that I had to battle starting my wrestling career as a freshman in high school. And as I got better, and as I was able to start to compete with the boys more, you know, I became more respected. But I think a big part of it that I had to battle was the stereotypes that came with being a girl in a boys wrestling room, and then being a girl competing against the boys. And I think that's a struggle that, thankfully, because women's wrestling has grown so much, that we don't have to deal with, and hopefully younger girls don't have to struggle with that either. And I think the more the sport grows, the more popular the sport becomes, the more respect that the entire wrestling community has for the sport. And I think that's an amazing thing, because as I grew up through high school wrestling, our girls program started to grow, and then we got respect from our boys team. And I think that's how it works when you start to put in that time and discipline and work. And then once you win, you definitely get respect. So that's
Yeah,
a
I
big part
think
of it.
like my high school experience, I was in a room that I didn't always feel welcomed in, which is fine. I think it takes people sometimes some time to learn that this is legitimate. But when I go home now, there's 15 to 20 girls on my high school team now that are all accepted and welcomed and praised. And so I think it just takes time and effort from the people to continue moving forward. So it's so cool to see the growth, and I think it's a lot different than it was 5 years ago. And so I'm just so proud to see 15 new faces that are all welcomed and praised in that high school room.
Marlynne and Cali said it perfectly, and I think every female wrestler has earned respect and planted their feet in this male-dominated sport. And so this year, as we're starting to compete, we will face challenges, but like I said, we're backed by the Iowa community, and we've been through so much adversity in this sport as a whole, coming back from different states, different high schools, where there's a girls team, where there's a boys team. I mean, just like my high school, now they have a girls team. At the time, I was only one of 2 girls on the wrestling team. And so we had to fight our way to go to tournaments and find places to compete at. But I think that this sport has developed us to where we can face adversity, and we have strong characteristics to take on those challenges.
I think you've faced and you've conquered a lot of the problems that women have faced through centuries, and now wrestling just happens to be the latest. But you walk into a group, Sierra, we'll start with you, of let's say 5th and 6th grade girls who are obviously fairly talented. What advice would you give them nowadays if they were thinking about maybe going into wrestling?
I would say do it. I mean, just like Marlynne and Cali, we are huge supporters of women's wrestling. We're female wrestlers, and I think it can only benefit you. I mean, if you go into a room full of boys, don't be discouraged. They are just as scared as you are, and go ahead and wrestle them. Go give it your all, because at the end of the day, you're going to get comfortable and you're going to plant your feet, and you can go so far in this sport.
I agree with that, Sierra. That was a good statement you made. And my advice is the same as earlier, is don't put limits on yourself. Whatever you do, don't put limits on yourself. Don't hold yourself back, because I look back and I see times, and I know there's times where I could have done more. I could have pushed myself harder. I could have put more on the line, but I was scared to, and I was holding myself back. So it's like, whatever you do, go all in, and it's gonna work out for you better in the end. Not just winning and losing, but you're gonna become a better person throughout the process of giving your all to what you're doing, especially to wrestling.
Yeah, I think the advice that I would give to young girls is to have confidence in where you stand and where you're at and who you are. And I think young men and young women struggle with different things, and I think that wrestling and sport in general for young women is extremely beneficial. But I would say have confidence in what you're doing and where you're at and where you're going. And also to stick with it, because like I said before, I did not like wrestling in high school. I struggled really bad with wanting to go to practice, but there was some reason that I kept going to practice. To this day, I don't know, except for maybe it was God's calling for me to be involved in the sport. But I would say have confidence, believe in yourself, and also stick with it. There's going to be challenges and adversity in wrestling, but just like life, there's challenges and adversity, and everyone faces that. Everyone faces that, and we all have to learn how to deal with it. And I think wrestling teaches you how to deal with even small minor things in a practice room that may seem insignificant. The way you react to it, I think, translates to the way you react to things in your life.
Marlynne, we'll stick with you, then we'll come back this way. There must have been one person or one thing that changed in your mind and said, I'm going to be a wrestler and I'm going to become an elite wrestler. Tell us a little bit about who or what episode ever happened to make you think, I'm going down this road.
Yeah, so I truthfully just literally fell into an opportunity to wrestle in college. And I think, like, growing up, I tended to be like just athletic. I think I come from a pretty athletic family, and so a lot of things kind of came easy to me, and so working hard wasn't necessarily like part of my regimen. And so I fell into this opportunity to wrestle in college, and my first semester of college, we had to wake up so early and wrestle every day and be involved in school, and that was the first time that I really fully was wrestling full time. And I remember there was the US Open in December, so that would have been the end of my first semester in 2019. And I think it was to qualify for the Olympic year, because then the next year would have been 2020. And I remember signing up for this tournament, and I had a couple of teammates that were really committed to wrestling, and they were really good at it. And so of course we only had 4 or 5 girls go from my whole roster. And I remember going to that tournament in December and seeing all these athletes, these elite athletes, because it's the US Open, and so there's lots of men and women that have been around. And I remember watching, and I think I might have went 1 and 2 at that tournament, and I went home for Christmas break, and I was like, I cannot be involved in this if I'm not going to be fully committed, because it is way too time consuming, it's way too hard for me to kind of just be a part of something. And so I went back. I honestly had a mindset shift, and it was, if I'm going to be involved in this, I'm going to be all in. And so I went back my next semester, and mind you, my college season, I had a losing record at this point, a terrible record. And I went the second semester, and I was like, this is it. I'm going to be here, or I'm not going to be here. And I was also 1,000 miles away from home and all of this stuff, and I made a complete mindset shift, and I started to make wrestling my own. And I decided, I started working hard, I started doing extra things and really loving the sport. And I remember, I would go with this one partner, and we just kind of goofed around the whole practice. And then after that, I was like, I'm not doing this anymore. And towards the end of the season, my losing record turned into a less losing record. I don't think I ended up my season with a winning record. I think I was 11-11 my freshman year, but I ended up placing at the national tournament, because most of my wins came from that national tournament in March, because it took me some time to pull it together. But since then, the rest has been history. I really have developed who I am and what I stand for and what I want to do in this sport. And so now I'm all in, and I literally love wrestling with my whole entire heart, and the relationships I've built and the opportunities that I've had. And so for me, it's been a process, but now this is part of me, and I love it so much.
I think for me, there has always been one person who was the guiding factor in a lot of my personal life choices and my wrestling choices, and that's my father. And not only is he my dad, he's one of my closest friends, he's my role model, he's my hero. I'm getting emotional just talking about him right now, but he's the one who got me into wrestling. He used to be a wrestling coach in high school, wrestled at Ohio State University, and so he knows a thing or two about wrestling. And so my freshman year, he started wrestling. He said, there's no pressure. I don't want you to make a weight class. Just wrestle whatever you are and go see how you like it. And then freshman year, I got 6th at the state tournament. And I remember, my dad took me to the back hallway. He's like, Cali, you could have gotten 3rd. Come on. You could do better than that. And I'm like, okay. And I was like, thinking to myself, like, I placed. Why is he so upset I didn't get higher? And then, after some serious discussions, postseason, I said, Dad, I want to win a state title. So, spent the whole summer, whole season, preseason, and season training, and that was my whole goal. I don't really care that much about school. I just want to win a state title. So, I won a state title my sophomore year. And then, junior year, followed a very similar path, was undefeated, walking into the state finals against someone I'd already beaten pretty horrendously. And I go out and I get headlocked and pinned in about 25 seconds. And to me, that was like one of the most heartbreaking moments ever. And I can look back and talk about it now because I learned a lot, and it's just a wrestling match, but a wrestling match is more than a wrestling match because it's a wrestling match. And to me, that was my whole life, that was my whole heart, and I got thrown and pinned, and it's like that, match is over. Didn't win a second state title like was my goal. And from that there were a lot of conversations with my father about who I was, the truth that wasn't just wrestling, but the person I was, the life I was living, the reflection that needed to happen, the growth that needed to happen. And so I trained like a madman after that point and really decided to make some serious mind shifts and spiritual shifts in myself. And I went out and, my goal was to place All-American at Fargo, top 8. And I'd become a different wrestler since that state finals match, and I lost in the blood round. And that was the blood round to go to place, and my dad was there in my corner. And you know what, I walked off thinking he was gonna be upset, thinking he was gonna be mad after all that summer we spent training, all those years, the time put in, all the talks, and he just said, I'm proud of you. You gave everything. It doesn't matter if you win or lose, you gotta give everything, and that's what he'd been talking to me about since that state finals lost. And then my senior year came in, won a state title, went out to Fargo and placed, which kind of avenged my loss from last year. And it wasn't until really this year I knew I was coming to Iowa, and he said, you know what, you could be really good. He's like, and I never had that belief. A lot of these talks and this motivation came from my father and his belief in me, and slowly it started to become my own belief. And so all of my thanks goes to him, and my gratitude goes to him for this journey. But really, it was that pivotal moment of losing in the state finals and then losing in the blood round, but being okay with that loss and accepting it and using it for something better and realizing, hey, I could actually do something really special with my career and with my life. So that person would definitely be my father.
Very good.
Since I was younger, I always said that I wanted to be a wrestling man. My parents tease me about it every single time, and they always bring it up. Like, everyone used to always say, I want to be a wrestling man. And I got into wrestling because of my brother. He needed a practice partner, but I had already wanted to join wrestling way before then. But my parents didn't know that girls can wrestle. So my first time practicing with my brother, it was an opportunity for me to find myself, and I was like, I love this. I love the grind, I love the hunt, and I want to continue this. And I don't just want to do it for fun, I want to be something great. And that's when I started watching wrestling with my dad, and I got to see pioneers like Coach John, and that I was looking up to her, and I still do. I admire her greatly. And we had people like Helen Morales, the Olympic gold medalist, and Adeline Gray, the silver Olympic medalist. So I am so grateful to have had female wrestlers to look up to and to want to pursue a high level in wrestling. Especially when I got to high school, I was like, I could take this to a collegiate level. And that's why I say women's wrestling is such a great opportunity to pursue academics at a high level or to even travel the world. I mean, you meet so many people and you learn so many things and build so many characteristics in yourself. You find yourself, and in this sport I have found my sense of self, and so it's my home. Every time I go to the wrestling room, I don't want to leave because I could do my homework there, I can sleep there. It is my home. I am addicted to it, and the reason why I want to continue to achieve more in this sport is because I myself have a younger sister who started this sport when she was 4. And so when you ask the question about young girls, what would you say to them, any advice? My younger sister was really discouraged walking into a wrestling room because it was full of boys. Thankfully, she had my little brother who wrestles, but I mean, he does his own thing. He teases her and whatnot, but she was discouraged, and I just told her, go in there, wear a tutu if you want, make it your own, it's an artwork. And so when she went in there, she would wear her tutu because that's what made her comfortable. So when you go and wrestle, if you're a little girl, go out there, make it your own. It doesn't really matter because eventually you'll find where your feet are and you will be where your feet are. And I want to pursue that because I know that my younger sister is looking up to me, but also I want to create an opportunity for girls internationally and girls in my community. And I love this sport, and I hope that we can all continue to do that.
Very, very impressive answers, all three of you. I think you know this, and we're not done, girls, that later on today we have a panel on Friends of Herky, so we hope you're all here. Today, this season, is Herky's 75th birthday, and we're honoring Herky. Now, I guess, for some reason, I'm just thinking of this, but if anybody else on this panel has a birthday today, would you stand up? Is there anybody who has a birthday? Well, here, everybody, happy birthday to you.
Oh my gosh, she did this.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Marlynne. Happy birthday to you.
Oh my gosh, thank you. I told Carissa I didn't want anyone to sing happy birthday to me because I get embarrassed.
I just took a wild fling that maybe somebody had a birthday. I didn't know that. Well, anyway, okay, let's get back to it. Girls, let's start with Sierra. You're in it full force now, Iowa wrestling, women's, men's, top of the country. What are you looking forward to the most in the upcoming season?
Like we all stated before, competing, that's the biggest thing. I mean, we've had this entire summer to practice and drill and just continue our artwork, but now we get to showcase it on the mat, and hopefully you guys get to come and watch that. But I'm also looking forward to wrestling with my new teammates because it has become a family so fast, and I was my new foundation and my new home.
I agree. I'm excited to compete. I'm excited to step on the mat with the singlet straps up. You know, I'm so pumped. It's gonna be awesome. I'm also excited to train. You know, we're doing preseason stuff now, but once we get into the season, I'm excited for that with my teammates because that creates an extremely tight and close bond when you're going through these gritty practices together, but you're experiencing it together, and I think that just helps us become closer. And I'm already so thankful for the bond that I have with these girls. And I've only been here for a couple weeks, and I love it. But the thing I'm excited to do the most is to compete and to win. So.
Yeah, I think I am also excited to compete. I'm a defending national champion, so I think there's a totally different. This is going to be a totally different year for me. A lot more pressure and a lot more, you know. It's just going to be a challenging year for me, but I'm excited to go out there and compete and win and defend my title.
Sounds great. Your season is coming up. Will you go to men's wrestling meets? Do you expect them to come to your wrestling meets?
Yeah, last year, even though we weren't competing, we still showed up and supported the men's wrestling team, and I know they're talking about coming in to support us. They already do. Every time we see them, like I said, they say hi. They are so friendly. And
They're going to be there. They'll be there.
Let me ask you this, though, Ellen. There's freestyle wrestling and there's folk style wrestling. Each of you tell me a little bit, or tell the folks out here. I know the difference. What's the difference between the two?
So freestyle is wrestled internationally. The men, once they graduate from college, they wrestle freestyle and Greco internationally. So freestyle is what you wrestle if you want to make an Olympic or world team for men and for women. The scoring is slightly different. I think only America wrestles folk style. Everywhere else they wrestle freestyle and Greco. The scoring is slightly different, but they can elaborate.
I think the best way to explain the difference between folk style and freestyle scoring is that freestyle is based off of exposure. So if your shoulders are exposed past 90 degrees, that's 2 points. Folk style is scored on control. So once you gain control of your opponent's hips, that's 2 points. So I think that also explains the way we wrestle freestyle versus folk style. Like, folk style is a very controlled, a lot of times college matches are extremely tight, close matches that come down to a riding point or a stalling point or an escape point or one takedown. Whereas in freestyle, it can be back and forth all the time because you're getting 4 points and then 2 points and sometimes 5 points.
There's throws in freestyle
and
wrestling.
So the bigger your move is, oftentimes the more points you're going to get. If you expose someone feet to back, that's 4 points, and that's a big deal. So it's a lot more creative in that sense, and I think that's the best way I could probably explain it.
You can get 5 points off of a throw if you put their feet over their head, so it's a lot more interesting, I think. So I always, anytime I coach a practice with young women in it, I say, you guys better all wrestle freestyle, because most of the time they're, I just wrestle folk style. No, you gotta wrestle freestyle.
Freestyle is so much better. Now that, it's a lot more. I think it's a lot more fun. I love folk style too, but now that it's obviously our lives, is like freestyle is just awesome because you get a takedown, you wrap someone's legs up, you roll them a couple times, match is over.
We're a touch biased, but freestyle is superior.
Yeah.
I used to wrestle folk style, and when I went to the transition of wrestling freestyle, I was like, I'm never going back because freestyle is just so much different. I don't know if you know, but in folk style, they'll say, put them down gently if you're about to throw them. In folk style, in freestyle, you just slam, call it a day. You're done.
Slams all day.
They're going to be right over here signing autographs right when we're done here in just a minute. So I think you'll all agree with me. The Iowa Women's Wrestling Program is in great hands. And let's give it for these three wonderful girls.